How's everyone doing? We're a little behind today, assuming everyone can hear me. We are a little behind today, but that's because we've had some Curie Dog stuff, and I've had some busy ReaperCon stuff, but we're getting by. Hello, how's everyone this morning? I made some announcements, but I realized I don't think people have filtered in yet. So, um, I say announcements. I had touched base with our audience. Let's put it that way. How is everyone?
Hey everybody, it's Anne. Welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips on a very sleepy Wednesday. As the little dog got me up about every hour, an hour and a half last night, so I'm like, I need like the cartoon, I need the toothpicks to prop open my eyes. So, yes, it's been that kind of a morning. However, it is infinitely preferable to not being here and not being alive to like be here on this day. So we shall go forward with a positive attitude. Hi, everybody. Hi. Oh, yeah, it's oof. Image, it's just oof. You wake up and, like, the Fitbit said I didn't get awful sleep, but it was definitely not optimal sleep. Yeah, so, I'm like, that's where we're back to Snake Lady, because I'm like, that is very simple. I will do that. That's where I am today, guys. That's where I am today. Hey, D. Clearman. Oh, with the 16 months. Crazy. I wonder if you've got the record, D. Clearman. Like, Justin, do you know who our oldest sub is?
No, I think I can look at the list and see,
Yeah.
but I think that's 16 months is pretty close. Like, let me see here. If I type on our channel here, that represents the absolute oldest of the sub, like our
Oh.
channel.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, he's got a first in front of his name too, which means he was one of the founders. So yeah, so
So
definitely.
yes, absolutely.
Yay! Now we
So
know how
yes, I
old we are. Up, yep, and Kaz. Yep, Kaz is right there too.
yeah. So the 16-month subs are the people that basically have
Jumped on board the minute we announced you
have
were going to be doing Twitch.
yeah. Well, as soon as we hit affiliate, and then we
Oh,
hit that
right,
like,
right,
hey,
right,
we can sub. They were like, here you go, here's a sub, and then we've been doing it since. So
right.
super kudos for the guys that have been following us that long, guys and
Yeah,
gals.
guys and gals. Yeah, let's see. What am I going to do today? I want to do some gold. That means I need to dig out metallic paints. What is this? What is this craziness? I don't know. Like metallics? What? We don't do these things. So, oh, you never used Twitch before Reaper started? Well, good. Yay. All right. We're going to play around with some golds today. Why do these look so different? Well, because they're different, and you made them different colors. I'm grabbing just some metal. We're feeling metal today. We're going to go with it. Let me see here. I need to grab my bag of all the metallic paints, somewhere hiding over here in the box of doom. Box of doom has my metallics. Oh, hey, we might need that. It's my gloss sealer. I always wondered where that went. There we go, gloss. Oh, and I have a lot of I have a lot of empty bottles. Things I've forgotten that I ever had is over here. Let's see here. Pardon me while I dig around. So, what colors you want for metallic? I'm going to do gold edging on her cloth, guys. So, pardon me while I dig in my box. We are, as I mentioned, a little bit slow today. There we go. Metallic bag. But, yes. I appreciate everybody who has subbed to my personal channel. Thank you, everybody. I don't know. Hey, Justin, does Twitch pay out like once a month, or do they pay out like when you hit goal, like when every time you hit $100 or something? Do you know?
They they pay out the same time of each month. I
Oh,
believe.
okay. All right.
Which, to be honest with you, I don't even know when that is, since that's yeah. But whenever Dave, he used to send us messages based on those deposits, that kind of as a benchmark. Since I'm not gonna lie, I've often measured the success of our channel based on obviously monetary gain through
Oh, of
subs
course.
and bits and things like that.
Yeah.
So once again, let me take another opportunity to thank everyone who's ever given any sort of subs and money to the channel, because it is direct validation for what I do. So thank you
Yeah,
guys.
exactly. A sub for the show is a vote for the show. A sub for the channel is a vote for the channel. You want the channel to keep going, you want Reaper to believe that this is still worthwhile, sub to us. It's the easiest way to do it. We love having tons of followers too, so if you do not have monies, we understand. Although you can always do a little cheer with bits too. That's always fun.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so sorry, Kiri.
Correct. A big number of followers is also another good indicator, like Ann said, of kind of what
Love.
we're doing here.
Much
So
love. Let's see, where am I?
much love. So whatever you guys can do, obviously,
I'm
it's
good.
welcome.
There we go. I'm framing myself. Oh no, I've been framed. I like go back and forth between where I want my camera. Like I'm bouncing up and down right now. Sorry guys. Alrighty. We are to snake. Expect me to be a little bit like wobbly today, guys, and staying on topic is probably a wistful thinking type of thing. Now, let's do kind of a good. What I like to start with on metals is I always like to undercoat metals. And you usually want to go darker, because metallic flakes, especially ones that are based on mica, which is a lot of the flakes in the industry, not just ours, are made to function better off of a dark base coat. That's just the way they are because they're translucent. That's what makes them shiny. Even the bones flakes are the same way. They look a lot brighter if you put them over a dark color. I'm going to go actually a medium color here. I'm going to kind of experiment with something and see if it works. So as you can see, like I'm doing the border here on her dress. I've decided to go gold because that'll let me use my fire color really well, because the yellow will be a natural highlight to the gold then. Yeah, it's the how many times can we get Anne off topic day? Yeah, that's it. And boy, we could probably hit a record today. Snake Lady, you don't have a thing to stick you on. Hold on. Let me grab a block for Snake Lady. Unlike Commissar, she does not have an integral or a plastic base that she's mounted on, so she really needs some help. And she's a metal model, so she's heavier. There we are. All right, Commissar sits over there for now. Oh, Justin didn't see my Commissar. Hey, Justin, you're a 40K fan.
Oh, let me see.
Shiny. Very shiny.
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, so
That's awesome.
been working on that on the personal stream, and she's almost done, so yay. Yay. Alrighty, so let's see here. And I've been working on NMM like for ages, it seems like, so that's why we're going metallics today. So poster tack. Alright. Snake Lady should be cool. So yeah, when I first started this, I was thinking NMM, and so I kind of like left my Zenith priming on here. And because we've decided to go metallics, we can't leave this white here. Like, underpainting with Zenithal doesn't work so well with metallics. Because, remember, to get the optimal shine, you need a dark base color. So leaving this white here actually will work against you. Because it's going to look shinier over the black. Even though it'll look lighter, it'll just look like it's not covering over the white. So what we're going to do is we're going to experiment. I'm going to use the color I would normally start out, my latest color for NMM Gold, which is Rich Leather, base color. And we're going to put a coat of the Rich Leather over the Zenith, but we're going to try to leave some of the Zenith showing. Like, I do want it to be darker over the black and lighter up top. I want to kind of experiment and see if that can help us keep the Zenith, but then overcome, you know, give us some highlights and shadows out the gate. Oh, my attention span is nowhere today, so, you know, whatever works. Hey, Gergie. Today, I think, for my personal stream, I think we're going to be working on that big child bust that I'm working on, guys. D. Clearman's ears perk up, because he is also working on that bust. But I have some homework that I gave him, so that means I have to, like, do it myself. So maybe we'll do that on stream. She's such a pretty bust. I like to work on her anyway. But this one, let's see here. Okay, so we've got our Rich Leather. I'm going to not thin it too much. Between, I want to say around 3 to 1. 3 to 1, 2 to 1. Where's my glasses? On me, of course. Question in Discord with Dragon and Antique Gold getting dry and gummy. Dry and gummy. You do need to thin your metallics, guys. Just in case nobody ever made this plain. If it's getting dry and gummy on your palette, it's drying out, right? So what you want is you want to put some water in your metallics. The key here is how much water you put in your metallics. This is kind of like the liners where I might go 5 or 6 to 1 paint to water, but I still want to have some, let me get her in focus here, hold on. But I still want to have some water in there. So there we go. So okay, that worked pretty well, putting that coat. It brought up our black a little bit. It's more solid up here. It'll probably be cool. Metallics, yeah, I don't know how much we'll retain of that, but that's all right. That's all right. So I wouldn't put drying retarder in metallic paint just because drying retarders, I mean, you could. It'll thin it a little bit. Depending on which drying retarder you use, it'll either make it more gel-y, which can be harder to get a smooth layer with, or it'll make it a little more runny, which if you put no water in can work. Metallics on a wet palette is generally a bad idea. Most people I know who use wet palettes actually use well palettes for metallics. But yeah, I would thin it. I mean, you can thin it a little bit without it falling out of solution. You just gotta not thin it to the extent that you thin a lot of your other paint. Let me just get this rim on here. We're going to experiment on this area in the bracelet, I think. But yeah, I mean, you do need to add water, and thus, when it starts to dry out a bit, you need to add water again. So when you're working on your metallics, unlike when I'm working generally on a model where I'll have all my colors open on my well palette, when I'm working with metallics, I'm usually specifically working with metallics. I only have those colors open, and I work fast because I know that metallics are going to be, you know, more prone to drying out, and their base is super high acrylic to make them really shine, that make the shine maximized. So that means that when they do dry out in your palette, you can have a heck of a time getting them off. So always, if you notice them trying to dry out, like, and you're still working with other paints in your palette, just throw a bunch of water in there to make sure they don't dry like full strength on your palette, because it's really hard to get that off. Today for painting big, it's going to be probably around 2:30. I feel a little bit sluggish, but I'm going to try to get a nap in after lunch and replenish my energy. I am a big believer in the power nap, so we shall do that. So yeah, probably about 4:30 your time. Sorry. That's my usual time. I've got a schedule up on Twitch, and usually it's like 4:30 to 6. That way I don't intersect with other Reaper shows. Sometimes I start a little early. Sometimes I start a little later. I'm trying to be around that time, though. Yesterday I was running a little late. When there's Curie stuff, I have to bow to the Curie. I missed a little bit of Flash here, guys, so I'm being a bad and taking it off after the fact here. There we go. Much better. Often, if it's a little piece like that, and it's not going to be anywhere near where it's being handled, I don't even reprime. It's just a tiny little area. So I will just put paint over it. Because I'm not going to, if I pick up the snake, I'm not going to pick her up by that area, so it doesn't really require primer. Only if you're doing that over an area that rubs off easily, that you know is going to be handled, or hit the table if the mini falls over, you know, that sort of thing. Then you definitely want to prime that little speck that you took off with your knife before you go back and put paint over it. But all right, so we'll fill in this, fill in that. Hey Zambies, how's it going? Oh cool, yeah, you should stop in. I'll oh, say hi. yes Twistedoma. Cool. Yeah, we're doing the OSL stuff on metallics, which is really hard. Or it tends not to look as good unless you really control your metallics. And by control, I mean really force the highlights and shadows on the metallics in a way that most people don't. So that you're really controlling where the light hits, which usually involves heavily shading your metallics with opaque paint. Oh dear, I got a splash of goo on the top of her head. I'm going to have to paint that over. Or is that the shadow from the arm? No, I think it's a splash of goo. I got a splash of goo on the top of her head. I'll have to correct that later. And that might actually get the other sleeves here. So yeah, so what we're doing now, guys, is undercoating the areas that we want the gold to go. I'm using 9430 rich leather. Because that's what I would normally start NMM gold with. And I'm going over everything. The interesting part of this is going to be trying to bring up under reflections. So this is going to be heavy duty shaded metallics is what we're going to be doing. Where we almost completely lose the shine in the shadows and then artificially reintroduce it. And I'm probably going to use a bit of, I don't have our sparkling blue, but I'm going to use a bit of pearl white mixed with clear brights probably to get this under highlight to be the right color. So I'm actually probably going to do my under reflection in a totally different color. I don't know, because it's gold, so technically blue light would take it greenish. So we'll see what we can do. We will see. It could be weird. We could end up with something weird. I might paint the gold and then do glaze over it. That might be a better way to do it. Sometimes when you're mixing light colors with surface colors, sometimes glazing is just the way to go to get the more realistic look. So we have a lot of metal here. And again, I'm thinning my paint I think it's about 3:1. That's my guess. It's still got some coverage to it, but it's translucent enough. Now, one thing that I am doing is I am going to put metallics even in the deepest shadows. Because if there's even a tiny bit of light in the environment, metal will usually catch it. So I am still putting, even though that was black and this is black, and, there's a lot of areas here that would not get the overhead light source much, but it would catch light from somewhere. It would catch a little bit of light from the ambient or from up there. If there's even a tiny bit of light, metal will catch it. So I will be blocking in everything in a bright gold, which will look very weird until we start shading it. And It would be much easier to do this with NMM because, of course, you can control your highlights and shadows very precisely with NMM. But we've decided to do it the hard way today. And see what we can do. Silver would be interesting to do as well. Or steel. Because... Oh, we gotta get that too. Because then we'd have to essentially put colored highlights on it. I still haven't decided on a color to do here. I was going to go for an accent color, but I hadn't figured it out. I might go for the purple. Alrighty. I think we've almost got it all. Finally out of the heat warnings. Yeah, thanks. It's actually a blue. The cloth is purple, and I brought it up with a little bit of a blue mixed into it for kind of a twilight, dusky kind of look, or a dim light in a cave kind of look. I need to finish her tail also, but she's almost done. Other than just some general refining and, you know, tweaking and smoothing out blends and all that kind of thing. So, alright, we've got, I think, everything mapped in. More or less. The inside of the sleeve isn't really done. There we go. Alright, I think we're good. Alright, metallics time. I think I'm going to go... I usually go, if you're going to do shaded metallics, you want to start pretty bright. But you also want to leave some room for highlights. I could go with either Dragon Gold or New Gold. New Gold is a little less shiny. I think I might want to do Dragon, though, and then go up with New Gold, because New Gold is an easy highlighter for Dragon Gold. So, New Gold is your gold highlight color. Like, it is the lightest gold that we make. So if you're looking for a color, if you've like shaded your gold and you want to put in highlights, go 9051. Yeah, we'll go Dragon. We'll see. I may regret it, but we'll see. More Mathophile. Yeah, we had some hotter weather here in California as well. Still in the 90s today, but now we're having like forest fire smoke, which is a new thing for me because, you know, I'm not from out here except when I was very young. So Kiri is very kind of unnerved by it, which could be why she had a bad night last night. Because, you know, in her experience, smoke leads to fire alarms, which are horrible, terrifying, you know, ear-hurting things for a Kiri dog. So, all right, so I've got about, let's see here, I've got about 4 drops of gold. I'm going to do 1 more drop of gold. Maybe 2. We'll do 2. We don't need this much gold, but now I'm going to do 1 drop of water. Just to give it a little bit more staying power in the palette. It is still going to be just fine at a 5 or 6 to 1, and it is a little more fluid. It comes off your brush a little bit better. It should still have pretty good coverage. You might have to do two coats, but that's fine. Under 90 in North Texas. Crazy sentimental. Nuts. Oh, I forgot the bracelet up top. So my base color is darker than my initial gold color, so that's good. It should still be pretty shiny. You don't think it'll last, yeah. Not in August, I would think, unless you're due for a very, very mild. So there you go. So you can see how shiny that is. It's very, very shiny. So even over that top thing, and then we'll bring it down here. So you want to start out with shine so that you can bring it down with a lot of different colors of shading. Build up layers. I'm going to just do the whole area just as if I was just block painting the model. So this is your metallic base coat after your regular base coat. And I don't think that Zenith is going to work. Like, I can see a little bit that it's brighter down below over the darker color, but it's very minimal, so that's fine. We'll be putting shadows back in. I was just curious if that would have an impact, if Zenithal would have an impact. And the answer is no, not really. So if you're doing a lot of metallics on a model, doing a Zenith Prime is kind of silly unless you're just going to use it, take a picture and use it for reference later. So yeah, we're going to have to cool down this gold a lot as it goes toward the shadows. Good day. The main event. Morning. We are doing shaded metallics. I have a lighting effect on this snake lady. And I decided that I would, instead of doing non-metallic metal, which is a lot easier to make work on this sort of thing, I decided I would try to do it with metallic paint. Shading and highlighting metallic paint. Got a little. See, that's what I mean about metal sticking. Like, even when you make an errant brush stroke, you usually have to go back and fix it by painting over it. Our metallic paints adhere really, really well. Oh, hey, thanks for the raid, Brackart. We are working on metallics on a snake lady. Welcome to the stream, people. If you only have a single gold, how would you deal with the different shading with metals? No, actually, Mathophile. You just do it just the way I'm doing it. You would just add... I'm going to be going over this gold with a lot of regular colors. I don't want shine in the shadows unless I put it there. So if I only have a single metallic paint, then I'm just going to mix other colors into that, regular colors. And probably I will be somewhat limited at that point. You won't be able to highlight it up as bright as I can, because I'm going to be using new gold and I'm going to be using pearl white to bring up highlights on the gold. Mixed probably with a little lantern yellow in the case of the pearl white. So because of my light color here. So if you only have a single metallic, you're kind of, you're limited in what you can do with shaded metallic. In that case, the one metallic you have is your highlight color. That's where you're going to go. You can probably get a little more mileage out of some metallic colors if you add a little white pigment, like just pure white, 9039 to it. But the more of that you add, the more dull it's going to get. So you may get the color you want, but not the shine you want. You could add some gloss sealer to kind of counteract that. At that point, you're persnickety. Like, if I was going to do shaded metallics and I wanted a good bright highlight, I would at least pick up the highlight to whatever color I had existing. Well, if you have metallic medium, then you can mix your own metallics. That's easy. Just don't put too much regular paint in it or it will dull your metal. And in that case, your metallic medium is your highest highlight, probably. Yeah, it's Snack Lady. You got it. It's a snack. Ah, awesome. Yeah, metal medium is essentially a means to mix all of your own metallics. So you just add regular pigment paints into that to make metallics of your own. You are limited, like you won't be able to hit some colors because obviously different metal mediums are required to hit different colors. For example, like to make adamantium black, we would use a much darker silver flake. That's more like a graphite color. So depending on the number of metal mediums you have access to or that are on the market, oh no, that's the belt. I'm metallic to the belt. No! Well, I'll be repainting that. Actually, I can just paint a little bit. When you paint something the wrong color because you have definite lack of sleep the night before thanks to your dog, this is what this is today. Luckily, it's an easy correct. I'm just gonna leave it dark so I can remind myself that it's a belt and not a cloth belt. Oh, I see. Reaper Matt had a Maldicar on his desk. Out of stock. Yeah, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. At least 10 different flakes. At least 10 different flakes, Image. At least 10. And I may be off. I may be, there may be more. But I think at least 10. Because we use different flakes from a couple different companies, obviously, since we do, since the Bones metallics are based on different flake technology. But yeah, lots of different flakes. So there is a limit depending on what most companies. I don't know. I know there's at least like obviously everybody's got a silver and a gold medium, most likely. But I doubt. I don't know what call there is for a lot of other metallic mediums out there. You could probably get a variety from like Liquitex or something. I mean, some of their interference paints are just that. They're just a metal medium with a color shift or whatever. Um, but yeah. The big thing to know though is that, like I said, the when you mix other colors into your metallics, you are going to make them less shiny. So at that point, your medium is your highest highlight. Unless you have other metallics that are even lighter. Like the Pearl White. I keep saying this, but 9100 Pearl White was made specifically to highlight other metallics. A lot of people don't get the point behind Pearl White, but once you know that, you're like, oh my god, everybody should own a bottle of this. You can use it to highlight gold or silver, or even some of the colored ones. Like it's great to mix into sparkling blue, for example, and make a paler, icy blue highlight. Well, yeah, but that's, I mean, whenever... Sometimes, even if we find some, they won't all be put up for sale. Sometimes we think we have some, and then it turns out that those other boxes are something else. Or they put them all up and they just sold really fast. Which I can't blame anybody because I have the resin Melticar and it is a really nice piece. Alright, we're going to get this. Keep going. Remember, I've got some water in my metallic paints. If I notice my metallic paints are starting to get a little bit thick, I'll just drop another drop of water in there. When you underpaint with a dark color, as you can see, it's not really affecting anything. Like, I'm getting still a good shine on my metallics, even though they've been thinned. So the answer is yes, you can thin metallic paints. You just need to thin it very little. So this is about a 6:1. The most I think I would ever go is about a 5:1. Part of that is that the base for the metallics is so very high acrylic, so it's very fluid. And so too much water causes it to break a lot faster because it doesn't have thickening agents. You don't want a thicker paint with your metallics usually. It just puts another barrier on the shine. Because a thicker paint usually has a bigger resin, which blocks more light. So we've always found the best metallic base to be the very high acrylic. Or equivalent thereof. So many of these bases aren't really even acrylic latex, or vinyl anymore, guys. They're just polymers that are made up that mimic those materials. So don't think that if you have a latex allergy, your acrylic latex paint is going to actually trigger that. A lot of the stuff that like I call an acrylic latex blend is actually proprietary resins that just mimic those things. Used to be that all house paints were like an acrylic latex blend or a vinyl acrylic blend. Binders in art paints are a lot different because they're not trying to get the same effects we are. It's like the gum arabic and stuff like that artist paints are bound with are very different from the industrial bases that we use, but they also are not as fluid. And they don't have as good of a self level and other qualities that make the paint we use better for miniature painting. I have to touch that up since I totally went over the line there. I always keep my walnut open for touch-ups when I'm doing metallics because I always paint over a little bit somewhere. Alright, so I think we've got... I need to get the bracelet. I keep forgetting that bracelet. And the top of her head. Paladin, if I'm going to go anything, I usually go what I do today. If I'm going to go with gold, I'm going with dragon gold, and then I'm going to shade it and highlight it pretty heavily. I like metallics a lot more on big items, busts. Mr. Grumpy's bust. The buckle there is metallics, but it's heavily weathered. So I've shaded it I wanted it to really look dirty, so I shaded it heavily. I did take the highlights up to the pearl white. You can see them. So this is done with a lot of the same color choices I'm using right now. And I think that in general, metallics look better on bigger models. That's my personal preference. So I tend not to use them on small models because I find that with tiny details, it's a lot harder to separate those tiny details out. The dark, yeah, I actually talked about that, Val, right at the beginning. You want a dark base coat, and in this case I went for a not as dark base coat because I wanted to see if my zenith highlighting would show through. As it is, it only shows through if I tilt it away from the light. You can see it right here actually. As this sleeve tilts away from the light, you can see the zenith highlighting and shading underneath. But otherwise, once you hit the shine, it makes no difference. So that's interesting. That's an interesting feature. I was curious about whether the zenith would make a difference after I glazed a darker brown over it. So yes, in general, you want to use a dark color. I don't think gloss black is necessary. Like, I'm kind of raised my eyebrow on that one and say that's, that can be overkill. All you need is a nice dark brown under gold, dark or even a medium brown under gold, and darker medium gray under silver. And sometimes if you're doing like copper, if you want to start with a dark green, you can get some interesting, play there. Shining Mithril is the closest to Pearl White in the Bones line, but it still is a different color because JS, the thing is that when I was making the paint line, I really did not want to put out the same color, exactly the same color in two different lines of two different names. So you can see here that Mithril is a tiny bit silver compared to Pearl White, which is purest white. So this is a very good highlight for silver. And I sometimes use this interchangeably. If I mixed this into the new gold for a highlight, it would probably work. But there is a tiny bit of black in there, so it might take my highlights just a little bit green because you've got yellow here. Whenever you've got anything with black, then you might hit this. But this is Shiny Mithril is a great highlight for silver. Let's get this bracelet down, and then I can start shading. And then I need to start thinking about what color I want on my shading. I probably need to go really dark, because she's in the darkness with this bright light source, or in the dusk anyway. So I think I'm going to have to go very, very dark with my shading. Also, being neat always pays with metallics. As with everything, the neater you are in your base coat, and saves you work down the road. Touch-up work. All right, there we go. It looks like I didn't quite get the metallic all the way down there. There we are. All right, I think we've got it everywhere we want it. I guess there's a little bit here, and a little bit here. All right. We have Snake Lady, and she is so shiny now. Oh, yeah, no problem. Val. Yeah, you do want to put, and the reason for that, Val, as I said at the start of the stream, is that the flakes for these paints, the flake that makes it shiny, are semi-translucent. And so, essentially, they work best. They are actually made to work best over a dark base coat. When we order literature on new flakes, we get these card binders with samples of the flake over both a white and a dark background in order to show us that they are much shinier and the color is much truer over a dark backdrop. So the flake companies are absolutely know this, and they tell the miniatures paint companies, or they tell the paint company is making your paint, but that knowledge sometimes doesn't pass down from the hobby company to the people using the paints. So that's why I tried to say it. And of course now a lot of painters will tell each other that because enough people have been saying it for long enough. But yeah, this knowledge originally comes from the actual people who make the flakes. This is working as intended. It's just the way that it happens, given the materials that the flake has to be made out of in order for it to stay shiny. I don't know about that, Miss Imp. I've used a normal black under color shift and gotten good results. I mean, I've got some of the Turbo Dork color shift paints. Actually, I've used just a dark purple underneath and gotten great results. I think it's just dark. I don't see what the gloss does for you. Maybe it gives it a very smooth, like if you're doing model cars, I can see why you do a gloss, because if you're spraying like airbrush, that's going to give you a super smooth coat. And that's going to keep you from getting a lot of brush artifacts. You know, it's going to give you a lot of a smoother, an ultra smooth appearance. So I can see that. I can see that. But I don't think it affects the actual amount of the shine. Depends on the shift. I could believe that, Reaper Collins. I could believe that. Yeah, it depends. It depends. But in general, they look better over dark. It really does depend on the flake technology, though. And different companies are using different products from different other companies, so you never know. I've messed around with the Green Stuff World ones, and I've messed around with the Turbo Dork ones, and in both of those cases, I found that they worked perfectly well over just a dark matte paint coat, but that you got better results the more layers you put on, so they're much better airbrushed because you can put on multiple layers very quickly and build it up so that you get a nice effect. I also find that they work much better on larger models. But that's true. I believe that of all metallic and, like, you know, this sort of effect paints. I think that the more space you have to lay down the paint, the more of a dramatic shift you get. Yeah, yeah, there's definitely... Oh, yeah, if you're using stuff for model cars, that's a big difference. Well, yeah, mm-hmm. That... Are they solvent-based, Miss Stimp? Yeah. Got a little bit of rub off there. Alrighty, now we're gonna... I think we're gonna use some dark purples to take this down. I'm trying to think about shadow colors. I think dark blues and dark purples. Maybe a little bit of dark brown for the shadows here, just because we've gone very dark close to black on a lot of the shadows here, and they are cooler. So I think I'm going to want that, heading up toward that. That's what I'm going to do. So let's get some Monarch Purple. Yeah, solvent-based, a whole different story. Whole different story. I don't touch solvents. I really don't like them. So for me, all I've got experience with is the water-based acrylic versions of those color shifts. So yeah, thanks for the input then. Yeah, thanks for the input. Because that would be something I wouldn't know anything about. Alright, gonna use Monarch Purple. It's a very, very deep, dark purple. I'm gonna use, let's see, what's my darkest blue right now? Ultramarine Shadow? I choose you? Let's see, what have I got? Got Styx Purple. I've got to ask myself at this point what I'm trying to do. Some of these paints are more translucent than others, so Styx is a little bit lighter than Monarch. But Styx also has black in it and a touch of white. You can see the difference in the color. And because of this, Styx is going to block the shine easier than Monarch, which has a definite transparency to it. But because Monarch's transparent, it's going to be easier to just layer on like smooth blended layers of shadow onto this. So, and Ultramarine is a little bit transparent, but actually has pretty good coverage. I love this blue. You guys should get this blue if you don't have it. Ultramarine Shadow, it's between Ultramarine and Void Blue, I think, and it's very much the same sort of thing, where you'll find more transparency in general in the bone, or in the core line. So if you're looking for vibrant colors that have a bit of transparency to use for layering and all that stuff, the core is where it's at. Like, I made that line for that. When you want more coverage, then you're dealing with bones, but you're going to find that you see how the brilliancy is affected here? When you formulate for coverage, you're not as vibrant, you're not as saturated as the core. So this one you can see looks just a little faded next to this. Once you put it on the model, it looks pretty good, but when you compare it directly is where you see the difference. Void Blue is the same kind of way. It looks quite intense when you put it down on the model until you look at it next to Ultramarine Shadow, and you're like, whoa, that's so much like deeper and more vibrant. And that's your difference. Like this really exemplifies the difference between core and bones, guys. as far as the 9,400s and the 9,100s and 200s and 000s. So yeah, Void is pretty saturated. I mean, it doesn't really make all that much difference unless you're like, with here I am really working with pretty saturated colors on her. So I'm not really muting. I'm muting because I'm working over black, but otherwise, so I could probably get away with either of these. It only becomes really a thing if you're working with a lot of very bright colors and then you try to use something more muted. But for shadows, it probably doesn't matter much. So just pick the color you like. I think I want, but I do love my Monarch purple, so it's Monarch. That's what we're going. And Monarch tends to go sometimes the darkest blues and purples and browns will go a little bit like a pure little glossy. It just seems to be a function of the way they reflect the light. So having got my Monarch, I'm also going to put a little tiny bit of anti-shine additive on there. Because I want these shadows to be pretty darn dull. I don't want them to reflect the light. If they're shadows, they shouldn't reflect light. So often you want to use your pokey tool when you're dealing with anti-shine additive. It is very thick. And you never want to put it directly in your paint. You want to put a little drop up top. If you can get it out. Oh no. I might just pop off the top and put a glob up there. Yeah. Bloop, bloop. Come on. Come on, anti-shine additive. You're my only hope. Yeah, that's why it's not coming out. So, anti-shine additive. Just put a little bit up on top. Little schmear. Here we go. Let me show you. See? See a tiny schmear? Not even a drop. Anti-shine additive is also one of those colors you want to add water to keep it viable. It is very thick. So I'm actually going to drop a few drops of water into it since I have it open right now. And shake it up well. A little bit of extra water isn't really going to impair it. In fact, it's going to be good because stuff is so strong that you really only want to use a tiny touch. So thinning it down with water is not a bad thing at all. Where's my water? There it is. Clear blue. I can't remember scrying, actually. It should be in the video. Oh, you may not be a patron. Sorry. Something like that. I mean, do that, and you may need... somebody was saying they needed a little more blue on that. So you may try 4, 4, and 2. And see that. I cannot tell you the exact match. I, kind of mixed it on my Patreon because we were using black indigo for a color. But then after that, one of the patrons said it wasn't quite blue enough. But, I mean, I can't get you exact. I can just get you close, right? So, if you want to get close, try 442. It's always going to be close and not exact. Because when I'm mixing colors, or when I was mixing colors for Reaper, I'm working with a huge gallon of paint. So, I'm incrementally adding, 40/8 of an ounce of pigment at a time, right? So, you're essentially... trying to mix it with bottled paints. This is why you never get exact. It's why it's so hard to get exact. If you're trying to match a bottled paint with clears and stuff, you can get really close. Probably so close it doesn't matter. But there we go. Now I've got some nice water in my anti-shine additive and it should stay good. So now we're going to take some of this anti-shine additive and we're going to put it into our purple because I know that it tends to be just a little shiny. And seriously, I mean so little. Like a tiny bit down into the paint. And I'm going to add some water and mix it up. Make sure I get that mixed in well, because it does tend to glob a little. You can use this if you wanted to make my Reaper Master Series into a dead matte, which it's not. It actually has a little bit of life to it, because that's how you need that life, really, for color to carry correctly. I had to drop another drop of water into my metallics. Notice they were getting a little bit thick. Mix them up. Because you might need to do a touch up here, so you want to keep your gold fluid. You also don't want it to dry on your palette because it will take so much work to get it off. Black indigo is a cool color, but it is very, very dark. Highlighting it, I would just add white, probably. Let's see here. So we've got Monarch, we've mixed in our anti-shine, and now I'm going to see what I got. I've dropped a bit of water into it. It's probably about 3-to-1. And I want to remember where my zenith highlights and shadows were. I could kind of see that there. But usually you've got your highest highlight here. Remember that now that we're doing shaded metallics, guys, now we're back to NMM theory. So you're going to think about this surface like you'd think about non-metallic metal. So we're going to have a band of highlight up here for sure, and then we're going to have another highlight here right before it drops away from the light source. So if we look at this, and we figure out where it drops away from the light source, it's right about here. And so right below that is where I'm going to start building up shadow. I find that I love purple. Well, I love purple shadows on both yellows and greens. I love how they look. And of course, with the blue ambient on this snake, it's a really good choice. I'm gonna grab some ultramarine, or maybe void. Maybe I'll grab void, because ultramarine has a bit of purple in it already, and I want something that's a little bit contrasty. And doing shaded metallics, I almost always will add different colors, at least 2 different colors of shading, maybe 3. And in that case, remember that the first color you put down for shading over your metallics is going to be to have the strongest effect. So, like, if you're doing a rusty gun in, say, a 40k orc, you have several choices. You could start with a rusty colored wash, in which case that will be the primary color over the metal, and it'll look like very rusty. Or you could start with a dark brown and just make it look dirty and grimy, then do your rust over the top of that. You'll still get a rust effect, but it won't be so everywhere obvious. So think about the order that you put colors on as far as shading and highlighting your metallics. The first choice will be the strongest. So I don't want to necessarily have a blue shadow on these metallics because it's going to go green, right? Over the yellow. So I don't necessarily want that. I might get a little bit of that as I head down on the model. But I want to start with my purple because it's a direct complement to the gold. And so it's going to be, it's not going to shift green. It's going to go more neutral, more just dark. And I will probably use a dark brown as well here, because she has a lot of brown on her, and she's probably in a cave, so I'm going to reach for 9137 blackened brown, put a little bit of that down. You could also use brown liner. You could also use, I'm trying to think of other browns you could use, like muddy soil might be a good one. Blackened brown has the advantage of it has excellent coverage. Oh, ebony flesh would work too. Even though it's actually a skin tone color, it's got a lot of blue in it, so it would be a very interesting color to shade metallics with. Hello, Just Saul. Thank you for the Patreon. Yeah, sorry, it's > Patreon on my own personal Twitch channel, the twitch.tv/paintingbig. And then it is Ian's Patreon over here, because we have many people streaming on Reaper Twitch, and they all deserve the recognition. So, all right, so I've got 3 colors of shading now mixed up. I've got all these. And the blue and the brown, notice what I'm doing here. The blue and the brown kind of is complementary, because a brown is really just a muted orange, and orange and blue are complementary colors, which means they're across from each other on the color wheel. It means that they tend to make neutrals when mixed together, and that they tend to make the presence of each one on the model will make the other one stand out. But since we're just using them for shading, we're more concerned with layering over the top of each other and getting an interesting neutral color. Likewise, the purple here is also the complement of the gold. So that's what I'm kind of doing here, is I'm trying to make an interesting dark neutral. I don't really mean for the shadows to look purple, although I don't mind if there's a hint of that in there. I really would like just a hint of that. I don't want it to be boring. I'm going to grab some blue. As you can see, these are not thinned like super. They're about 3-to-1. I probably can drop a little bit more paint in there, or water in there, sorry. Get them down to about a 2-to-1 so I can build up some layers. A lot of people will do colored metallics or shaded metallics with washes, and that's totally a thing. The bigger an area you have on, the more you can work with brush strokes to suggest texture and dabs of stuff, like Mr. Grumpy. So Mr. Grumpy's got all of these different, right now you can see it. All these different colors you can see. He's got like walnut, and he's got some red, and he's got even some green mixed in here and there. And because he's such a large model, I'm able to like do like a stippling stroke to suggest texture. You know, I have a lot more room here than I have on these tiny little surfaces. So when you're doing this on a big model, you can use like washes, push the wash around, stipple it, build it up in a lot of areas. And on these things, you'll find it a little harder to do that. You can do a little bit of it. Whoa, Reaper John. Golden Skull Club. Go for it. Yeah, I'm working on that PDF for you guys. It's been like yesterday. The streaming schedule does somewhat keep the PDFs, make the PDF a little late this week, I'm afraid. But I am working on it. You will get your $5 PDF this week. It's so close to done. I just need to take some pictures, do some swatches, do some editing. Not much. The $5 PDF is all about grays. Because somebody was like, why would I even need to buy a gray in the bottle? And I'm like, but there are some grays that are just so useful. So now we're getting kind of, if you get close here, let me get close here. What I'm trying to do here is to make this not boring. So let's see here. She also has very complicated light sourcing. So there we go. So see the pretty we have going on here? Like we've got almost a little color shift effect going on here. And remember, like, again, the first colors that you put on are going to be the strongest. Now, glazing that blue over there does give us exactly kind of what I wanted, a greenish shift that kind of matches the light from below. So what I'm going to do, since I like it, is I'm going to thin it down a little bit more. Just catching up on chat. Okay, you guys are just congratsing John. So I've decided I like that, so I'm going to paint the blue over that area. And it's going to give us kind of a greenish shift, but it should be with the way the light is going down below. So I'll have to ask myself how I'm going to bring up the highlights down here. And it may actually be, let's just do an experiment. Let's work on the sleeve, and once we have the sleeve looking interesting, then we take that and replicate it on the rest of the NMM. Wait, do I have my... I need to grab my Chaos Hound next time I dig him out. I don't have my first ever painted miniature Hagar, but I do have one that I was doing when I was still dry brushing. So it's a Chaos Hound, Scar the Chaos Hound from my first ever Mordheim Warband. So he's a Games Workshop Chaos Hound, but I love him. And he actually has stuck around all these years. Like, he is about 25 years old now. But I still have him. He's still around here somewhere. I should keep him close at hand because people always ask about that. But yeah, I mean, I started the same way everybody was, right? I didn't have great brush control. I was just putting colors on with no highlighting and shading. When I was a little kid, like I started at 9, guys. So my parents bought me one of those first Dungeon Adventurers sets from, it was either Partha or Grenadier. I think it was Grenadier. Dungeon Explorers. And, I mean, I didn't know why the mini didn't look as good as I wanted it to look. I didn't understand shading at that time, right? Because really, shading is what makes the model start being three-dimensional, and then highlighting kicks in and you get even better. But as a kid, I didn't understand that, so I was just block painting everything. Kind of like before you learn about washes. Except that since I was never actually taught, since I was self-taught and trying to figure it out on my own, I ended up layering before I ended up washing, really. When I did learn to wash, I didn't really like the effect that much. I found that inks gave me better mileage, but then they bled. Because at that time, inks weren't like the Dale Arouney inks. They were dyes. And so they were traditional artist inks. And so when you put paint over the top of them, they would bleed. So I pretty much just went away from washes because I didn't like the effect once I did learn to use them. I kind of learned weird stuff. Like, I didn't know how to dry brush properly until after I knew how to layer, how to blend. So, for a long time, I was very down on dry brushing. The evil technique. But now I'm just like, it has its uses. We try to be very inclusive. These days, people do amazing stuff with all sorts of techniques. Mostly, I think I just hated dry brushing because I was surrounded by gamers who insisted it was the only way to highlight. And so I got very anti-dry brushing because of that. Alright, so I took some walnut and I went in and I outlined again, like, the areas that have, to bring out these details, right? So essentially I used lining to separate the areas for this the metallic here. You've got to do something, because otherwise you can't really control. You know, it's like it's going to pick up light where it picks up light, and that's it. So I needed that to bring out the details, and then when I'm shading and highlighting, that's what I'm going to be forcing where the shades and highlights are. Like right now, even if I move her, even though the light picks up this area, because I put opaque color there, it's not shiny as the rest of it. So I'm forcing shadows at this point. I'm forcing the golds to only show highlights where I have not painted the opaque shadow over it. And that's what I call, that's what I mean when I say forcing shadows and highlights, is you're forcing the paint to not do what it wants to do. You're blocking it off so that you can do an NMM effect on metallics. Yeah, I didn't like the shinies. Like, I tried enamels and I didn't like it, and then I got acrylics and and I liked that better, but I didn't like that it had no definition or volume. But yeah, it took college to teach me lining, and then I loved lining and block painting, and then I learned to just, I learned more highlighting and techniques and shading techniques from there as I was painting my armies for my wood elves. Yes, the screaming in terror eyes, yes. The eyes without lining around them. Yeah. That's a long time ago, Scrying Eye. But yeah, I mean, testers and enamels were what we had because we had car models, right? My brother and I had a kind of a workshop in the basement. We had a chemistry set. We had all sorts of things that now parents would be horrified at what we had. But yeah, so we had some testers and enamels. So my first ever painting experience was I don't remember what board game we had that had little plastic snakes, but I dipped little plastic snakes in testers enamel. Red and black, of course, because that looked cool. With some gold, because metallic gold was awesome. But yeah, then I got a lot more discerning as I got older. Alrighty, let's see. I'm going to try something here. Because I do want an under reflection. We don't want it to be as shiny as up here. And the yellow light, you notice that the color I'm using, the dragon gold, works very well with my light source. And we'll make it even more so in a moment. But down here, I need kind of a bluish, like twilight reflection. And I put the blue over the top, but I've lost some of my shine down there. And I do want some shine. So I think I'm going to try mixing my void blue with pearl white and see if I can get kind of a pale blue and how that looks. And I might need to glaze some colors over it to try to bring up like an under reflection. It may not look right because gold. I may need to mess around with it. So let's do that. Let's try to blend that in with a little bit of the dragon gold. Let's in fact do a pearl white dragon gold mix. And I'm thinning my pearl white way down. It's probably at 3:1. You'll find that some of our metallics thin a little better than others. Mess around with them. Let's see here. I want to bring that up. I want that to be a little gold. But I want it to be a little bluer too, so we're seeing what I can do. That's kind of okay. Craft paint. Yeah, I don't remember what brand. I mean, Partha paint was a thing then. Like, Partha had its own paint line. I'm going to just put some blue over this. That's interesting. I like that. All right. So that's cool. And it's shiny because I've left more metallic down below. See how you really get the interrupt here where I put the more opaque paints over it. You still get the shiny down below and you get a different color of shiny up top. And that's what I'm looking for. I want it actually to be a little bit darker. I'm going to force more shadows there. Yeah, Trash, I'm not a big fan of them on small models, as you know. But we're having some success with making very interesting shaded metallics on this snake. I think Michael Proctor might actually approve of these metallics. Yeah, Poly S was what the last square carried for a long time. I remember seeing people using them, and I just wasn't as happy with them as I was with at that time Vallejo was coming out. All right, let's see here. I want a little bit more purple. I want a little more blue. I'm using really thin paint to layer these shadows on. So essentially it lets me gradually block off the light. Like this is where you get layering with shaded metallics, is you are working with, you're layering with your traditional paints because they're very layerable, whereas the metallics often aren't. So yeah, so I like this. So essentially I wanted it to go a bit green because we've got a blue underlight, right? You can see it. So blue on gold is going to go greenish. So essentially we go cold and we go bluish. And when I went just pearl white for this under highlight, it was too blue because it still needs to go that little bit of green factor. So I actually mixed a little bit of pearl white and my dragon gold together to get kind of a really pale gold, and then I glazed the blue over the top of that. And that is giving us a nice kind of twilight under reflection that's still shiny. So again, we're controlling the level of shine. Since I glazed the blue over all of this, it's not going to be as shiny as our up top thing, and that's what we want. You can see it's not quite as shiny as this catches the light a lot stronger than this does. So that's what you are. Jakob Rune Nielsen, if he's still around, I think he's still around painting things. But I mean, you see a lot of, like, Kirill. Kirill does both NMM and, like, this bust was from Kirill's class, Kirill Kanave. So Kirill likes to do NMM, I think, and also gets paid well to do NMM, but his metallic technique, this is a traditional, like, old school, historical technique. So, hey, Roll to Explode, thanks for the raid. Fantastic. But I think a lot of people vary it, Mathophile. Like, when I was first doing Golden Demons, Jakob Brun Nielsen, so Jacob is his first name, as far as spelling goes, he was famous for doing metallics like this, where he was using, like, transparent paints and inks in lots of different colors to, like, shade his like, silver and things like that. And it was a very striking effect, and he was really the first painter, I think, to push that. Won several Golden Demons back in the day. But nowadays, I think people are more likely to do what fits the model. I don't think there are definitely probably painters out there that specialize in metallics, but Kiri might have a Kiri emergency, guys. Be aware. I'm not going to end the stream. I'll come back if she's got to go. Hey, Justin, can you take over for like 5 minutes? Hopefully there is a Justin around here. Otherwise, you guys are going to have to entertain yourselves for a second. Yeah, because I think my dog is going to have to go out. Yes, she's kind of got that distressed look on her face, and the mommy, I have to go, and she is making that. Oh, there you are.
Hey, Ann.
Hey, yeah. Kiri's looking like we've got a Kiri emergency on our hands, so I'm gonna actually preempt and make sure I get her outside. I'll be back in 5.
Okay,
I will
I'm
leave.
here.
I got it.
Oh, okay, cool.
I'm here.
Oh, Justin's there. Good deal. All right, cool, guys. Yeah, ad lib for 5 minutes, and you can look at the snake lady, and then it shows you the colors. You can see it, and me and Kiri will be right back.
Hey, chat. How's it going? If you guys have any questions, you guys can just put them in chat, and I'll try to answer as best I can. How's my sound, Justin? I don't know how my sound is.
It's pretty terrible, but it's fine.
Okay. How about now?
Nope, not any better. It's the
Okay.
mic you're using.
Okay.
Not a whole lot you can do about it because you're using the laptop, right?
Yeah, 1 second. There we go. That should be better.
That is, yeah, it's moderately better.
Okay. There we go. That should be better.
We got an echo.
Yeah, I fixed it. What's the threshold for a Reaper hat? Nomad, that kind of changes every so often. It just depends on the stock that we have. So if things kind of change around, like if we run out of cups or hats or mouse pads and things like that, they kind of get shifted around. So it's kind of like an uncertain thing. That's why we kind of don't post it anywhere, because it's constantly fluctuating and changing. What's for lunch? Missed him. I don't know. What do you guys suggest in chat? What do you think we should get, Justin? Let me and Justin know what we think we should get.
You already have your lunch though, right?
No, I haven't, not yet. I take lunch.
Whoa. So for everyone here in chat who don't know, which is pretty much everybody. John basically it's a pouch of tuna, three saltines, and half a persimmon for lunch every
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
Doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but that's what John wants.
Yeah.
But I'm shocked that you didn't actually, because you seem to have an endless supply of tuna pouches and persimmons and such. So um, I'm actually surprised, like I said, that you're going to go get lunch or at least order
Well,
lunch.
after the stream is over, I'll go get it.
Can if you're John Rubigon, because that's just John has them imported from everywhere. He
Hagar.
pays hundreds of dollars.
Hagar, I get the different flavored packets of tuna. So like, it'll be like lemon pepper and barbecue and things like that.
How's that tomatillo one still doing for you, John?
Oh yeah, no. Yeah, that's why my beard grows so well. Yeah, correct. That's the secret. Um, Never go full persimmon. I agree.
Oh, that's perfect.
Good reference. I hope you guys are having a good stream. I saw that we got rated twice, so thank you for all the raiders if you guys stuck around. So thanks everybody. Jetta Rose, do you know when the swag boxes will reach the UK? I emailed our UK manager yesterday, and I believe the pallet is set to arrive on the 24th. If anything changes from that, I will post on social media as best I can. But right now, the current date is they should arrive on the 24th. Tacos? Yeah, taco. Oh no, it's Wednesday, so I'm not sure. Maybe sushi. I might have sushi for lunch.
Sushi sounds good and light. I like sushi because it's light usually.
Yeah, there's a place near us called Sprouts, and they do like a really cheap, like they're cheaper on Wednesdays for sushi. So a lot of the Reaper people used to go there on Wednesdays. Mhm.
Complete side note too. I don't not that I want any of you guys to run off and do anything else. But when we aren't live, you guys should check out Games Done Quick on Twitch. It's a fun way to pass some time.
Oh, yes. Mhm. Yeah, me and Justin watch that all the time every year. They do it once in January for the new year, and then they do it once in the summer-ish type of time. And it's just a bunch of speed running of games 24/7, and they donate all the money to the game.
Yeah, it usually lasts about a week. It's kind of like Shark Week, but for video games. It's kind of nice.
We are back. We are back.
Hello, Anne.
Yes, I return. She's like, I didn't really have to go. I don't think so, but I will in 10 minutes. Yeah, you know, Kiri. All right, Kiri, settle down. Come on, you were just out there. Settle down. We're streaming. We have to stream. You know streaming? I'm going to lose Justin out of my ear, though. Good deal. Good deal. Yep. Kiri, settle down, please. She knows David is out there on a call, and she, like, hears him, and she wants to be out there, too. All right. Awesome. I don't even know what you guys are talking about, and I don't even want to know. So now that we have our, we have worked out a sleeve, and we like it. Good girl. Can you settle? Settle, Kier. Settle, Kier. Good girl. We'll hope Kiri holds on for another 20 minutes. But now that we know that we have something and we like it, we're going to replicate it on the other parts of the model, keeping an eye toward where highlights and shadows would go with NMM. I also will go and probably add a stronger highlight here. I probably should do that just straight away. Grabbing a bit of Dragon Gold, dipping it into my Pearl White, mixing those together. I could also use, as a starter, I could go New Gold. New Gold is a little lighter and brighter. A little lighter than the than the dragon. But since I have Pearl White open, I can just go and make... You can see it if you tilt it away from the light. This is where blending these two becomes very difficult, because metallics generally just don't like to blend. They just... To thin them to the level... And the flake itself, you can't thin. Like, you can't make the flake finer by adding water. So, it will always tend to show, like, kind of a dot or a blob when you add a highlight, if you tilt it away from the light. So I may just take a little bit of... Sometimes you can take a little bit of thin metallic. The gold, the bones metallics are a little more amenable to thinning. So you can sometimes get them to go a little bit more smooth. Like there, I used the gold to smooth the edge of the, you can see where the mixture is, that little dot right there. But either way, it's going to go pretty bright. So that's good, that's good. And I might paint a little bit of that color also, the gold and the pearl white mix, say on the top here. And another thing I might do at this point, or shortly thereafter, is take lantern yellow and glaze it over this area if I feel like it would help match the light color. But as it turns out, the color of dragon gold mixed with pearl white is very close to this color anyway, so I think it's reading just fine. But if you had a different colored light, for example, then you might need to glaze a little bit of that color over your highlights. Like if this was silver, if we were doing a silver thing, then I would definitely glaze with some of this lantern yellow over the top of the highest highlight on the silver, because that's the color of the light, so it needs to reflect that light. Yeah, you did, Rex, just barely. We're doing colored shaded metallics. We're forcing highlights and shadows on the metallics on Snake Lady to make them work. So I'm going to grab my Monarch Purple again, 9239. I can kind of see where the shadows were on my Zenith highlighting here, so I'm going to kind of follow that a little bit. Now here it's not going to be as effective with the under highlight, I'm afraid, because I just don't have as much room. This is where metallics really suffer, is when you have a place where you don't have a lot of room to develop this kind of highlight and shadow. You see, this is, we're working on a larger area here. Even though it's very narrow, it still is very large as far as its top to bottom measurement. Whereas when you're working on tiny little things, it's much harder to get the little details to show up, to get those under reflections. It's much more difficult with metallics than it is with NMM. It's so easy with NMM. But here, we have to try to use extreme shadows and highlights to pop areas of this and bring out tiny details. And I don't want to put a dark shadow between the bracelet and the arm here, because we've got the fire directly coming down onto that, so we need to pick that fire up. But I can try to do the underside. It's just not gonna be as cool as it looks down here, because we have a lot of room to develop the colors down here. It's a lot easier to telegraph what's going on down here. A lot harder when you get up here. And I am going to put a dark shadow right behind the rim of the bracelet here, because it would have one. And behind her hand, there's already a very dark shadow. Kiri, settle down. I got up and took you out, and then you didn't do anything. So you're going to settle for the rest of the stream. Settle. Restless doglet. Alrighty, so let's see here. I want a little bit of a dark shadow behind here. I don't want the one there. You kind of have to think about where the light is going here in order to make it look right. You want that dark shadow behind that rim there, but not too strong. That's looking a little better. What the thaco of tacos? Well, I guess it depends. Like last night, I guess is it your thaco eating a taco? Effectively eating a taco? Or is it like if tacos were attacking you, what their thaco would be? Because we had fish tacos last night. I'm pretty sure that they had a pretty high armor class because they kept avoiding being eaten by sliding out of the burrito or the taco shell. Alright, trying to get some highlights on here, again with a mixture of dragon and pearl. Again, we're trying to use like opaque colors, in this case the Monarch Purple and some walnut, to really introduce some of those dark shadows. And you want to use regular paint for this. You don't want to use dark metallics. I know a lot of people will tell you that, you know, just use a darker steel color for your shadows and a lighter silver color for your highlights, but in general, when you're trying to really create dramatic metals, you don't want those shadows to reflect at all, or you want them to reflect very little. And it depends on what you're trying to do, right? So with Mr. Grumpy here, he's oiling his armor, and that oil is essentially mixing up with the dirt and dust on the road, and it is, you know, getting mixed in. And we've got some areas, like this area is definitely done with opaque paint because I wanted it to be really caked on dirt. But in and over here for the rust, this dot is totally opaque. It has no shine. But you'll notice a lot of the underlying areas, like even this, does have a shine to it. And the reason is that that's like dust and dirt mixed in with the oil. The oil would still have a sheen. So that's the decisions that you're making here and how you should make decisions on where you want your highlights and shadows to be. It depends on if you're doing weathering or if you're just doing a basic highlight and shadow on metallics. Wow, we have lots of raids today. Thanks, DL Pancake. I appreciate it. Yeah, we're getting toward the end of the stream, but you guys can at least see what I'm doing here. A well of painting knowledge. Yes, yes, indeedy. So we're doing shaded metallics today, guys. We did this awesome sleeve. I was trying to create like a cooler bounced light, and then you know, the highlight from the fire is coming down, being very hot on the gold up here. And I'm using Reaper metallics or Reaper paints. Yeah, you can walk. Come on, like Nordic. Seriously, I paint everything. Like, not on this stream, obviously this is Reaper's stream, but like, look what I've been working on my own stream, okay? So yeah, I used to play orcs. Mostly because I wanted an army I couldn't take seriously. But yeah, so I used to play orcs, so wog away. I still have, I think, one or two of my orcs somewhere. Mostly I'm Eldar now. I switched because I needed an army that was going to be smaller so I could paint it and actually finish parts of it. The orcs were great, but there were so many of them. A well palette of knowledge. Oh, that's terrible, Garrett. That's terrible. TMM. Mr. Grumpy is TMM. True Metallics. You can see by the way the light moves. See it? But he's shaded metallics, so Mr. Grumpy has definitely got some, yeah, and even the gold is metallics. Gold is done with Reaper metallics. I actually used a different metallic base on the breastplate. And some of the micro scratches, I think, are also done with a different, I think it's Vallejo Model Air Color Chrome, because the airbrush paint is so thin, you can make some really thin little dashes and lines with it. There's always crap I can talk about. And when you've been painting for as long as I have, you have all sorts of stuff. Dark Eldar. Yeah, I used to do Dark Eldar, and it's like, okay, when I started 40K, I was Dark Eldar, and then I realized that I was not good enough at strategy and tactics to make Dark Eldar work. So I went Tyranids, and I enjoyed playing Tyranids for many years. But then when I moved, I actually gave my Tyranid army away, because I didn't want to move it. And it's a lot of gaunts. And I didn't have very much room to move my stuff in. I didn't have a big moving van like I did when I moved out here. So I ended up giving away the NIDs, and then when I restarted, I did Space Wolves for a very short period of time until they made their pronouncement on no female Space Marines. Then I got disgusted and quit. And then ended up going Orcs when I was playing with the guys at Reaper years ago, just because I thought they were funny and I wanted to play an army I could laugh at. And then, yeah, the Orcs, again, were just too big of an army. So when the guys started playing again a few years ago, I went Eldar, because I'd always wanted to paint Eldar. They always struck me as a painter army, because they're just, the way that they're done is like, you've got to paint them decently. Like, they cry out for a good paint job. So I thought that it was time, and I may as well give in to what I've been secretly wanting all these years and get Eldar. And at least they gave us new Howling Banshees. I really wish they would give us the rest of the aspects in plastic, but who knows if I'll ever get my wish. Because I want to play an Aspect Warrior army, so. Because that way I can paint. Every unit is different. I won't get bored. Yeah, glass cannons. Yeah, they are. I am a Reaper Miniatures employee, Nordic Forge. Actually, I worked for Reaper full-time for 17 years, up until April of this year. And I met this awesome guy. Well, actually, a year before or more, I had met this awesome guy. So I ended up moving in with David, moving out to California. But I'm still on Reaper's payroll. I do this stream for them, and so I'm still a part-time Reaper employee. So I didn't really quit. I quit being full-time when I moved out, but they allowed me to remain remote, which is one of the awesome things about Reaper. Reaper is just generally an awesome company. So yes, so I can still keep my, even though I don't keep my full-time and I'm no longer in charge of making the paint line, which I did for 15 years, I nonetheless keep my Reaper anniversaries. So yeah, on April Fool's Day every year, I can celebrate another year of Reaper employeeship. I have the best work anniversary ever. All right, so I'm just putting a little bit of highlight. So, okay, so again, forcing a highlight, right? So we went in with some lining to pick out the details here, and now I just took a little mix of that pearl white and dragon white, or dragon gold, sorry, to make a paler gold, essentially, to make a lighter highlight. And I probably will have to bring that lining in a little bit again. I'm putting it on the edge where it would catch the light coming down. How are you, Reaper? Yeah, the Age of Sigmar miniatures are really good. Yeah, Twisted almost got it. Yes and no. I am still on Reaper's payroll, Twisted Oma, so I am still a Reaper employee. I do get a paycheck every week. It's just a tiny paycheck now. Most of my money comes from my Patreon, which is patreon.com/paintingbig. And recently I've started streaming on Twitch just for fun. Just so I can work on my own projects and just have people to chat with while I work on my own projects or my commissions. Lately I've been working on my Commissar that I just showed a moment ago. That's a commission for somebody back in Texas. And then, yeah, today I'm going to work on one of my own projects, a bust. And that'll be around 4:30 USA Central Time over on twitch.tv/paintingbig. Assuming I get my nap in because my dog kept me up all night last night, so I'm like, oh, sleepy. Oh, cool. Awesome, Nordic Forge. I love to hear that. I love to hear that people love the paint. Because it really is, like, I feel like it's my legacy to the painting community, honestly. I started formulating them about a year after I started at Reaper. It was one of the original things on my Reaper when they hired me, my job description. It was down in my job description to create a new paint line for Reaper. Because at that time they had Pro Paints. And they wanted to switch up and do something in dropper bottles that would be a competitor for Vallejo. And so yeah, I taught myself some paint chemistry until I was just enough to be dangerous, and then I spent the next 15 years creating new colors and hand mixing almost every batch of Reaper Master Series. I'm putting some pearl white highlights. You can see how those show up. The pearl white, sometimes mixed. Most often I'm mixing it with a little bit of the dragon gold, but you can see how that shows up, like that pop of highlight there. So you can direct the eye with metallics. You've got to use some opaque paint for shadows to get best results, I think. Gonna put in some of my purple shadows. Speaking of, right where I want them. And again, using a couple of different colors. Michael Proctor is another guy, Mathfile, who has done, I think, a fair amount of shaded metallics. Thank you for the plug for the Patreon, Mighty Garrett. Oh, thanks, 20-sided. Awesome. Yay, I'm so glad you guys like my paint. It really makes me feel awesome. It really makes me feel like I did something for the community, right? Because I've been a miniature painter forever, and it's really awesome to be able to leave a legacy like that. And now Sadie is making my paint for me, or Reaper's paint. I should make it, it's Reaper's paint. It's not my paint anymore, but it feels like my paint. It still feels like my baby. Just doing some highlights. Gotta bring that up. Bring that up. Gotta put a shadow in there. Yeah, Sadie is now the paint goddess. You can chat with Sadie. She does a just chatting stream on Reaper Twitch on Tuesdays, yesterday. Where she just, everybody hangs out and talks about stuff for just like an hour and a half while she paints, while she attempts to finish a Learn to Paint kit. But Sadie is, I find Sadie highly entertaining. So It's not definitely like every show that on Reaper though has a different kind of feel to it, right, guys? So this is definitely the knowledge bomb show, and I'm very happy with that. That's the way I tend to teach, the way I tend to go. So I am happy being the knowledge bomb. A lot of the other shows are more laid back and more fun, I think, just for chat purposes, but maybe I'm underrating us. So you see how putting that shadow in, even when I tilt it directly toward the light, it's going to interrupt the light. So that's what I mean when I'm saying I'm forcing shadows. The light cannot reach the metallic, therefore that even in direct light, I am forcing it to read as dark. That is the thing that is usually lacking in metallics when you just shade them with other metallics. And if you're doing a lighting effect like this, you really need that. You need that area to read dark no matter what the lighting is in the room where you're looking at it. Oh, good. I'm glad 20-sided. Yeah, Josh has his own thing too. I mean, because right, he's working more with like a palette of colors that he's made up and made accessible to everybody. So it's a very, you know, kind of a paint along kind of thing, which is way cool. And he paints a lot faster, I think. He's a lot faster than I am. I'm a slowpoke. Which is awesome because it's nice to have somebody who's teaching speed. And speed jobs that look good, right? So that's the thing, right? We all want to paint our armies faster, but we also want them to look good. I think I'm going to glaze some purple over this because I wanted this to be purple. So I'm just going to put that color on there so I've got something on there. There we go. Now I've got purple on there and on there. I think that, a lot of us get pretty slow. And honestly, when I'm taking my time on a project, I slow down because I'm just enjoying it. At that point, when I'm doing like really intricate non-metallic metal or lighting effects, or I'm working on a model I really adore, I'm going real slow. Just enjoying the process. And I'm just taking it as it comes. I'm not trying to speed it up at all. But if I'm trying to do something for an army, I'm usually trying to be a little more efficient. Or D&D figure. D&D figures I tend to just slap paint on. I mean, as much as I slap paint on. I still put it on with like some consciousness of where it's going. It's just, it's like, well, I want this to be okay, presentable, and maybe it doesn't even get done. It seems like every time I finish a D&D character, she just dies, so I've given up. Yeah, like, I didn't finish my Pathfinder character. I didn't finish painting her, and she never died, so I have to say that so far I'm being reinforced in this decision. Alrighty, so there we go. We're putting in more shadows. I'm just kind of flitting back and forth, as you can see, from shadows to highlights, just to try to make everything start to look right. And just balancing. Yeah, I mean, sometimes but don't feel like you have to do washes either, right? There's two sides of that, right, Midigarrett? Like, washes can act really well. Washes can be a great tool in your toolbox, absolutely. But I run into people who have been like kind of forced into that base coat wash highlight mentality, and who just really don't like the look of washes. I really tend not to like the look of washes because they're not controlled, and I'm a control freak painter. So for me, they're not. And I think that really it's like, learn how to use them, make the call whether they suit your style, whether you really like them, and then, yeah, run with what you enjoy. Run with what is creating the effect you want. I'm trying to think of the last time I even used a wash that I wasn't trying to speed paint. I guess sometimes on really, really, I think I am going to use a wash actually on one area on my bust that I'm going to work on later. And that's going to be like these, this is the bust I'm working on. But it's on these arm guards where the leather has these tiny spikes on it. And I probably am going to do just a dark wash to pick out the spikes and then highlight each one. Because trying to do anything more than that is just such a time sink on a very small part of the model that doesn't matter very much. Nordic Forge, essentially, I was a freelance painter for a while, and I'd moved back to the Midwest because I'd broken up with my boyfriend out east. That was when I was working for Games Workshop. And I was definitely looking for different opportunities because GW at that time just didn't have much upward mobility for me. And I also wasn't like married to some of their philosophies, their selling philosophies at that time. I think they're a much better company now. But I got invited down. My best friend, Jennifer Haley, my best painter friend, had gotten invited down to Reaper for the first ever artist conference, Reaper Artist Conference, which was a precursor to ReaperCon. And she had suggested to Ron that he asked her if she had any other painters that she would invite, and she's like, yeah, you should ask Anne. So at the last minute, I got called down to the first ever Reaper Artist Conference, and while I was there, I did what I do. I started teaching people. And it turned out that Reaper was looking for somebody with a personality like mine who really enjoyed the teaching aspect and would just jump in and teach anybody how to paint. And so the fact that I also had some strong opinions on their current paint line, I think I actually did tell Ed and Ron that the pro paint sucked. I think I did. The way that Reaper Brian told the story, I did. I don't remember. It's been a long time, but I was very honest about my opinion, and I gave them why, and that was part of why I create a new paint line as part of my job description when I was hired on a Reaper. But essentially, at the end of that artist conference, Ed and Ron took me aside and said, "What would it take for you to move down here?" So I went down with just gave my best, and had no idea there was even such a job that could be open for me. I just thought it was a fun time sitting and painting with my friends and helping people. And it worked out that I got offered a job. So I think that the moral of the story is if you really love something, just always give your all at it, and you may be surprised at the opportunities that pop up. Try to help people and give it your all. I have been listening to some motivational books lately on audio, and I have to say that see you at the top, that guy, where he says, you can have anything you want in life as long as you help enough other people get what they want. I think that's very true. So highlighting the bit of the sleeve there that looks like it's getting a little bit of light from top. Probably isn't, but the way that it's kind of like swinging out, I can make that work visually, so I'm going to do it. But yeah, and then I ended up working for Reaper for 17 years, so obviously I got just the job I wanted. I always call it my second dream job. I actually worked for the relay for the hearing and speech impaired. That was my first dream job. I held that job for 4 years after college, and I loved it there. I liked working with the deaf community. But then they had to downsize in Wisconsin, and I got downsized because I was one of the youngest supervisors. So then I was just kind of off at odd angles, and I had been painting models for commission, and I had been looking at eBay because a lot of some of the best painters, out there, like Jennifer Haley, were on eBay making decent money. So I was like, well, I'm putting my models up for sale in our local game store, and they're selling, so maybe I should try eBay. And I was got back into like just a basic corporate job and was selling on eBay, and I just finally came to the conclusion that I could make a living mini painting, and one way or another, I've managed to make a living mini painting. Although I'll tell you, I was really dumb when I freelanced before. I'm much better at it now. Patreon is also a real like a game changer. Being able to go on Patreon and have them handle the financial aspect of collections and like just having that regular paycheck every month, guys, like that's beyond priceless, really. I don't think I could be making a success of this like I am without you guys. Like, it's you guys and your support on Patreon that keep Kiri in dog treats, as I like to put it. So thank you. I know there's a lot of you who have subbed to my Patreon, who have, even if you only do a $2 level, it's all appreciated. You are all awesome. Does not matter, especially in this day and age where a lot of people are kind of tight on money. It can be hard. A lot of artists are really suffering right now. Musicians, the poor musicians, I feel so bad for them. There's a Patreon plug. Thank you, guys. Justin is that odd cousin that sits in the corner and eats paste. Well, you know, when he's not eating paste, though, he's very useful.
Which isn't very often, in case people are curious.
Paste eating keeps you sane. Something like that. I think that maybe you could get pretty far by making like a Lovecraftian version of Reaper in fiction, like, you know, Innsmouth, Reaper as Innsmouth, and just make up everybody's got a different psychoses, and you wouldn't be far off. Everybody's got a weird. Everybody's got a weird. He says through a mouthful of paste. You canceled Tea of the Month so you could hang out on my Patreon? Oh, yay! Man, I should send you some of my tea. Margaret, I feel bad now. Oh, Holly Monster, thank you for the sub. Awesome. As we said earlier, a sub for this show is a vote for this show to keep going. So, yeah, so there you go, guys. Like, I hope you get kind of what I'm talking about now with the whole, you know, forcing your shadows. If you're going to make metallics work with a strong OSL light source, you have to paint them as if it's NMM. Paint and highlight, shade and highlight them like they are NMM. You have to think about the same sort of shadow and highlight placement that you would with NMM. The advantage is, of course, that you can kind of put this, like, my main light source is kind of at this angle. It's my big ring light. You can kind of put that up there, and you can see where a lot of the highlights fall, because it's metallic paint, right? So it's going to show up that way. And then you can make sure that your highlights and shadows are mimicking that. So you can see right now there's a lot of light falling right on there, on there, on there. You know, up here where I've done my highlights, you can see them. And you can also see that there is light reflecting up from my under reflection. You know, so that's the nice thing about blocking in all your metallics, is you can work with the lighting that you've got. If you've got a nice desk lamp with an overhead light, you can always hold the mini up under it and kind of look at it and make sure you're doing the right thing. So... Please don't, I have so much tea. Yeah, I guess if you have a Tea of the Month club, you probably aren't drinking it fast enough to get through it all. Ah, jeez. You guys are awesome. Anyway, I guess it's 11:15, so even though we did start late, and also I had a 5-minute Kiri break, so that, I think this is about the right time to call it for the day. I think that's a full hour and a half, like I like to do. So if you guys have any questions about shaded metallics or anything, you know, feel free to ask. I hope this was more or less elucidating and made you think about, you know, doing your metallics as if they were NMM as far as the highlights and shadows part goes. You can make them look really cool. You can add in color shifts like I did here, which just makes them look really awesome. And do we have a raid, Justin?
Yes, let's see here.
Alrighty. But yeah, so your metallics don't have to be boring, I guess is what I'm saying. I mean, metallics would be so awesome. I mean, I do really like them on big models. Unless I'm trying to do something like I'm going to be doing on my other bust, which is like more of a chrome, more of a like sky earth metallics. Then it's all the NMMs, because I want to control and do subtle things. But otherwise, I love Mr. Grumpy's breastplate. It's one of my favorite things I've ever done. And that's all metallics.
As far as our standard people here, we have Sky Daddy, Mocha, and Dysus. I will let you shoot the sand.
We have not. We rated Mocha yesterday, right? Or the day before.
Correct.
And Sky Daddy before that. So I think we're around to Dysus again.
Let's do that.
Yeah, we did Mocha a couple days ago, MCC. We try to spread the love. I like to spread the love. So then we did Jimmy yesterday. So yeah, let's do a rotation. And I do like Dysus. I like what she paints. I get some good suggestions of things I should look up and companies I should look up. Alrighty. Well, thanks for coming, guys, and I hope that you liked this. I don't often do metallics on stream. I know, so rarity. And yeah, I will be streaming on my own Twitch this afternoon, twitch.tv/paintingbig. One word, obviously. Just doing my own thing, and we'll be working on this lady. I have some things I need to do on her. So, I will see y'all there. If I'm very tired, it might only be an hour stream, but yeah, 4:30 Central Time. Have a great day, guys. We will see you tomorrow or later this afternoon.
All right. Thank you guys very much for coming out and watching Ann and hanging out with us for about an hour, almost 2 hours actually today. It was a good stream. Um, but yeah, it's all possible because you guys. Thank you for all the new people that showed up too. Like we had a couple of new people in Nordic Forge, and there was another one too further up that I don't remember the name of. But thank you guys if you were new. Come out and hang out with us. We have a schedule that goes into our offline screen. I think there's also a schedule below the stream. It should be very close to accurate. Um, but thank you guys again. Keep being awesome, and we'll see you later.